Hello, Internet. So you have a song that you want to put out, but it's not mixed yet. But you like the way it sounds. Maybe you have to just touch it up a little bit. And for the most part, you're happy with it. I think you should just put it out. Let me explain why I think mixing is really not that important. First of all, this is not a new thing. This has been forever. There's always been music that comes out where the mix is not that good. And as long as it doesn't sound annoying or abrasive or too quiet, most people are not going to care. So if there's like one sound sticking out and it's way too loud, yeah, people will notice that. If your vocals are like way too quiet or way too loud and they're like abrasive or you can't really hear what you're saying, most people are not going to like that, but sometimes that's fine. There's a lot of rap music that exists where the vocals are either very loud or very quiet and people listen to it and they like the song. Um but I think a lot of, especially early on, and I'm still in this, even though I've been making music for a long time, I'm not an engineer. I do my best to mix and master my own music a lot of the time, but I have no like real engineering skills. I don't have any fancy plugins. I just do what I can and listen to my ears and just trust my ear that come out the way I want it to. And that takes some time, but nowhere near as much time as learning how to properly mix and master because depending on the genre, a clean mix and a clean master might not even be what you want, like especially in like underground rap, there's so many kids that record on their phone with BandLab and they put their songs out and they get millions of plays, you know what I mean? It doesn't really matter. It's all about style and taste. So, if you listen to one of your songs and you're like, "I like the song a lot, but the mix and the master just isn't there yet." All you have to do is just get it to sound decent to your ears. And there's a couple ways to do that. One is making sure that the song itself is loud. And now that doesn't necessarily mean like slam it with compression, slam it with limiting. That's really common in like pop music and stuff. And I think a lot of like when I was first getting into like mixing and mastering, that's what I would do. I would literally put a compressor on every single track and just crank it, and then put a compressor on the master and just crank it. And it would just be like a wall of sound. If that's what you're going for, that's super easy to do. And to most people's ear, unless it's too harsh, that's going to sound fine, you know? But if you want a little more nuance in your mix, all you really have to do is make sure that the master is loud. So listen to your song, listen to a song that you like similar in your style, and see how loud it is compared to that one, and just turn up the volume. You can put a limiter on it so it doesn't clip. But all you got to do is just make sure it's louder. That's usually a huge step with mixing and mastering. And like I said, I'm not an engineer myself, but something I've learned from my friends who are engineers is you can do a lot in a mix without doing too much. Like you don't have to have like 15 plugins on each track and dissect the littlest bits. Like if you want to do that, you should. But I would almost think of that as more of like a creative element to mixing as opposed to like objective mixing. A lot of the heavy lifting and mixing is really just volume, EQ. You can do so much with just turning stuff up and down and EQing. Seriously, like you don't even have to do it that much because as long as stuff doesn't stick out and it doesn't sound annoying or abrasive, people are going to think it's fine. I mean, honestly, I hear songs that are like super popular by big artists and the vocals will be so harsh. Like there's so much high end, it's compressed to shit. It's so loud in the mix, but people don't care. So why do you care? You know? You shouldn't care so much. Especially because people don't think of this mentality with mixing as much as they do with creating music, where it's like a lot of people will go into something, they'll make a project and they'll be like, this isn't as good as it could be, but I'm going to put it out anyway because I like it and I'm just going to make the next one even better. But with mixing, people get so caught up in the little details, well they'll never put it out because they're like the mix isn't good even though I love the song. But I'm telling you it doesn't matter. As long as it sounds decent, it really doesn't matter. And again, I know I'm repeating myself a little bit already, but it has to be good enough to the point where you like it. If you like it and you think it sounds good, there's probably not that much you have to do to the mix in order to put it out. And as time progresses, you're going to learn how to mix things better. You're going to learn how to get your sound better. Because I think that's another huge thing is like, again, it's easier for people to imagine the creative process of making a song and making it their own. But with mixing and mastering, there's a lot of the mentality of there's a right way to do it, even with the most creative artists. But that's just not true. That's just not how music works. Mixing and mastering is also something that is creative, or it can be creative. And the way you mix and master your songs can be part of your sound. It can be part of your creative process. Especially if you're a self-produced artist and you make all your own music and stuff like that. I think that's honestly really important. Now again, this is all up to preference. If you make music that requires a nice squeaky clean mix, then you're just going to have to figure out how to do that, or you're going to have to find somebody to do it, or you're going to have to pay somebody to do it. But honestly, and I know a lot of other artists have had this experience. Most people don't see the same vision that you do for your song. So even if you hire somebody, you pay them a ton of money to mix and master your song, it might not sound like how you want it to sound because they're just doing it in a way that's objectively good. But maybe your song's mixing doesn't need to be objectively good. You know, like there's so much old punk music that was like DIY recorded. It sounds like garbage, but that's part of the aesthetic because it's DIY. And that same thing applies to rap music now, like underground rap. There's a lot of music that comes out where the mixing is really not that good, or it's like barely even mixed. But it doesn't matter because it's all about the vibe. It's all about, portraying the energy that you want to portray. And if you were to take like an old punk record that sounds like garbage and mix it really clean and nice, it might not have that same magic. You know what I mean? Music is all about magic, and people forget that music is art and there's no rules. So if you like it, it doesn't matter. Like the odds of you getting a song like on the radio or something, it's so low as it is. But even so, like especially in the modern day, like it really isn't as big of a deal as people think it is. Unless you're on like some major label, but even then, there's major label artists that their mixes don't sound good because that's part of the aesthetic. So, basically I'm making this video because this is something that I still deal with, and I know a lot of people that go back and forth with this all the time. Mixing and mastering should not be the be all end all of your song. It should be the finishing touches. It should be like the cherry on top, basically. Just sanding it down a little bit to get it perfect to your ears. If you're making a sculpture and it doesn't look like realistic, but it looks cool how you think you want it to look, that doesn't mean it's bad, you know? Like if you don't varnish your painting exactly the way you're supposed to that you learned in art school, it doesn't matter. Do you think it sounds good? Do you think it looks cool? Do you think it's good art? Then that's all that matters. Yeah. I just wanted to talk about this because this is something I've been thinking about a lot myself and talking to other people in my life about. So hopefully you can get some inspiration, especially if you're a newer artist. Just put music out. Like, again, don't do it before you feel ready, but also be honest with yourself because you might be procrastinating and telling yourself you're not ready when in reality you're just putting it off because you're stuck and don't know what to do next. Just put it out and just keep making more. And I promise you, you will figure it out. You will get better. You'll like it more and more every time, and you'll learn more and more every time. So that's it for this video. Hope you enjoyed. I'll see you next week. I put out a new video every Sunday. So see you next Sunday.